Buenas tardes y muy bienvenidos a todos. Es un poco raro decir eso en la última sesión, pero espero que estáis todos despiertos, como siempre. Voy a empezar con un disculpe, simplemente para decir que vamos a tener este panel en inglés. Pero si hay preguntas en español, sin problemas, que los escribáis en español y pásamelos. So with that, I'll move to English. Certainly one of the themes of many of the sessions today has been both the pace and the reach of change in the global economy, and indeed change for all of us in our businesses. I heard the word exponential used a number of times this afternoon, and frankly, thinking ahead to this panel, exponential is one word I would use to describe the growth and development of China over the last couple of decades, and in fact also its impact on the world economy, of which I think we have only just begun to see how that will play out into the future. So with us today are two distinguished guests, both of whom have wide experience both in the policy sector as well as in the academic sector and across the business divide. So both very well qualified to talk to us today about the multifaceted impact of China. And we'll talk a bit about China and the global economy, but also a bit about what that means for Spanish business and Spain-China relationships. So with that, let me make some slightly more detailed introductions, and then we'll get on to the questions. So to my right is Dr. Mingjun, President and Professor of Management at the China-Europe International Business School, which we'll call CEIBS from here on, an MBA degree from Pierre Mendès University in France, and a PhD in engineering from Shanghai University. And indeed, science and technology is a theme that we're going to see quite a lot of in this conversation. He's a senior engineer and holds the position of distinguished professor at Shanghai Institute for International Studies. And prior to joining CEIBS, he was a diplomat, including roles in Hong Kong, San Francisco, and New York. He's also former secretary of the Shanghai Science and Technology Working Committee of the Communist Party of China, deputy secretary of the Shanghai Communist Party of China Science, Technology, and Education Working Committee, and president of the Party School of the Shanghai Communist Party of China Science, Technology, and Education. He's published widely on technology, strategic alliances, and the circular economy, a theme I know is of interest to many of my colleagues here today. And he has led numerous science and technology cooperation projects in Europe, both with governments and with companies such as Unilever. We are also pleased today to have with us Professor Pedro Nueno. Many of you will know him as the founder and currently the president of CEIBS, a leading Asian business school. He is Cheng Wei Ventures Chair Professor of Entrepreneurship at CEIBS and Bertrand Foundation Chair for Entrepreneurial Management at IESE here in Spain. He also founded Finavis, the venture capital fund at IESE, which has funded more than 40 ventures, and more than 3,000 jobs have been created. He has taught at several leading universities, including numerous years at Harvard Business School, where he also sat on the board, and he has been a consultant for companies such as Ford and Morgan Stanley. So I'd like to start by, I guess we have two people here who have been involved in a Chinese business venture from the very beginning, and I'm interested to begin with Pedro in understanding just a little bit more about CEIBS. You founded the school over 20 years ago at a time when business in China was very, very different than it is today. And I'm interested to understand a little bit more to begin with about that venture and the origins of it, and a little bit how it relates to Chinese economic development overall.
I started when I came back from Harvard one of the things that impressed me more at the Harvard Business School was the fact that Harvard had an influence around the world and helped launching business schools in different places. So when I was at the IESE in the 70s already, I thought, together with some colleagues, why don't we launch a business school in Latin America? And then we did it in Argentina. We started and worked very well, and today is the leading business school in that area. And then we went to other places. And then in the 80s, I thought, well, now may be the time for China. And since it was a bit difficult to convince people, at the end we organized an alliance between London Business School, INSEAD, IESE, Bocconi, HEC, to offer together an MBA in Beijing. The diplomas would be signed by the deans of the 5 schools. And well, there was demand for that. We didn't have money. We had an awful room, and sometimes we borrow space from companies that help us. But the thing worked. And then the ambassador of the European Union, Pierre de Chateau, who became very enthusiastic about that, told me, why don't you move this to Shanghai? Because it will go faster. I had to negotiate everything with the government. Then I said, okay, can you facilitate that? Okay, no problem. So he introduced me to the mayor of Shanghai. I explained the project to him. He was very interested, said, go ahead, make an official presentation in this international meeting that we have in November. And he gave me a piece of land in the best area of Shanghai. At the time, there was nothing there, but today is probably the most important area in Pudong. Then also this fantastic ambassador of the European Union, I always like to remember the people who were key for the project. He also helped me to get a bit of cash from the European Union, very little. But with this, we started in a classroom of a Chinese university, Jiao Tong, an MBA. And this worked very well. We went very fast. And then, well, 4 years later, we were thinking about building our own campus. We did it with I.M. Pei, the most famous architect at the time, because I.M. Pei had done an expansion of the University of California in Los Angeles, and the dean was a classmate of mine from Harvard. So I said, well, the poor architect, if he has survived this guy, then he knows what a business school is about. And frankly, he did a fantastic job. So we started and we kept growing, and we had a structure that probably was decided between the Shanghai government and the European Union of having 2 presidents, one appointed by the Chinese side and one appointed by the European side, and 2 vice presidents, the same, one appointed, but it's a complex structure. But here we are, the 2 presidents, appointed by China and by Europe. But, well, we work together very well.
Indeed, and partnership is one of the themes of internationalization of business, and particularly in China. Mingjun, we were talking a little bit about the importance of partnership for this venture, for CEIBS working well. Could you share with us a little bit about that partnership and the importance of it?
Okay, as Pedro said, actually CEIBS is a very good example. for Chinese government and the European Union to work together. So we set up the school as early as in 1994. It's just after opening of Shanghai Pudong New area. And I think because of the vision for Chinese government and the EU, and we set up this school. And after 21 years, now CEIBS is one of the best business school in Asia. Yep. And actually, according to the last several years FT ranking and the US ranking, we are at the top position. Yep. And this is really a very good example how China and the EU and the EU member countries, we can work together. Mm-hmm. So this school, at the very beginning, is internationalized. So Pedro make very good contributions. And our faculty, 2/3 faculty from foreign countries. Mm-hmm. They have a foreign visas, passport. And our school, we use the teaching materials and the lectures. We all according to the International Business School way. And actually, our school working language is English. So every staff, they should speak English.
Could I move on just from the school to a topic that will be, I'm sure, of interest to your business students and to most of the people in this room, and that's, I guess, speculation on the future of the Chinese economy, if we can go in that direction. And really the question, I think, that's been on everybody's minds for some time, and Pedro, I'll ask you first, do you think we're going to see a controlled soft landing, or do you think we're going to see a much deeper and a more consequential financial crisis?
Well, I'm going twice a month to China, and every time I go, I meet presidents of important companies, Europeans, American, established in China, or Chinese. This past Saturday, we have an event that we do every year. It was the 13th year that we do it on the healthcare sector. So we had companies from insurance companies. So what I can tell you is that I have not found yet anybody who's telling me that is soft landing or crashing or anything like that. Everybody is doing well. Mm-hmm. Everybody is growing. So look at the car industry. If the economy was in trouble, would people change their cars? And the car industry is growing 2 digits this year. So what is the crisis? And then look at tourism. How many Chinese are going for tourism around the world? So would they go for tourism if they would be losing their job when they would be coming back? So I think that what is going on is that that's my view, not from let's say, sending questionnaires and having questionnaires from meeting people, from meeting CEOs of companies, is that years ago there was a lot of concentration of growth in a small sector of the economy, to a great extent based on the real estate sector. In big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, while today the government has managed to extend this growth to poor areas, to rely on more consumption. Of course, if there is more consumption, there are more jobs created. Maybe you can have a lower a lower GDP, but it's a much healthier GDP because it's a better distributed GDP. So I think that China is in better condition today than it was 5 years ago. So the 6%, or even if it goes to 5% of growth today, is better than that 7 or 8% that was quite concentrated on fewer people that were growing very, very, very fast. So probably China is generating less multi-billionaires today, but is generating better consumption.
So a lower growth rate, but a more sustainable growth rate, and one I think we're also seeing spread less through investment and also through the growth of services. Mingjun, what's your perspective on the sustainability of current levels of growth?
Yes, I think like the global world, China's economy now face some difficulties, but we are quite confident, and China's economy is very promising. And we don't think China's economy will plunge, even though we don't have a stimulus plan. China's economy is big. Now, as everyone knows, around $10 trillion US, about 12.3% of the global economy. And also we think China's economy enjoys very huge potential, and also was highly resilient, and also has ample leeways. Just now, Pedro mentioned China's auto industry, auto sales. For the past 7 years, China was the leading marketing position for auto. There is a prediction when we reach the 2020, the auto sales volume will be around 40 million. So recently we have an auto show in China. All the big names of auto manufacturers, they presented. They are very promising. And this morning I saw a piece of news. They said that Tesla from US, they make a decision to invest, to make investment in China, probably in Shanghai. So I think we also have some other sectors like healthcare, tourism, education, culture, entertainment, such kind of things. Yeah, but yeah, we are very promising.
I think what's interesting about the list of sectors that you mentioned is that it's not the same list that it would have been if we were talking about Chinese economic interests 10 years ago. I think many of us had an early association with, and still China is very strong overseas in resource-focused industries. But as a statistic, I think this year or last year, China's outbound investment for the first time exceeded inbound investment. But the sectors are changing. Tell me a little bit about how you see Chinese interest in sectors overseas, be that in the United States or Spain or other countries.
Yeah, I think a lot of outbound investment made by the enterprises companies. So they will make decisions according to their own judgment. But nowadays we see more and more different sectors they are interested. Like some people said China's company acquired a European football club, and film industries. I think because nowadays there are more and more demand for this kind of culture, entertainment. And I think 1 week ago, US just announced the opening of a Disneyland in Shanghai. So the first day we saw 20,000 visitors. Yeah. So there is a very big demand for this kind of a sector.
So if we looked at, for example, Chinese company investment in Club Med or in a company closer to home, Osborne, it sounds like there's a strong element of that investment that's driven by the opportunities in the Chinese domestic market.
Yeah, like the Club Med, now China, every year we have people going outside around 100 million travel to different places. So more and more Chinese, they hope to stay Chinese style hotels, enjoy Chinese food. So some companies, they see this kind of opportunity. Yeah, so I think.
And in this trend, Pedro, what do you see as the opportunities for Spanish business and Spanish entrepreneurs?
Well, there are two types of opportunities. So one is that we have a tremendous value, and this is that we are very humble. But many Spanish companies are fantastic. Yeah. They are super competitive. They have the same technology as the leading company. So there are many companies that really could find a possibility of developing in the Chinese market. We have some examples of companies, even in some technology, that have gone there and they are doing quite well. Another possibility is that, another area of interest is that the Chinese companies will have to go global. And I think that the time is now. So when I was a student at Harvard, I always explained this. American companies were going global, and the unions didn't like it in the United States. The government didn't know if this was good or bad. So they came to Harvard and they asked, can you do research and find out if this massive foreign direct investment of American companies is good or is bad? So I was one of the slaves that had to work in that project. And we studied many cases of foreign direct, and the conclusion was clear. It was good for America because it created jobs in America, in marketing, in finance, in R&D, in lots of areas. It also brought big opportunities, but if they had not done it, somebody else would have done that. So again, 1 decade later, it happened with Japanese companies. All massively went abroad. And again, nobody understood clearly what that, well, the reason is that if a company goes, buys, if a Chinese company buys a European company, then in the next board of director of their competitors, the first thing they will say is, look, our competitor is opening in Europe, and what are we doing? So it's not surprising that when somebody does it, the competitors do it also, and then a third one. So what we can expect is that from now to 2020, we are going to see a flow of Chinese companies going global, is the time. But this is good. So as Professor Mingjun said, take the case of Volvo. Since Geely, the Chinese company, acquired Volvo, Volvo has created in the 2 plants in Europe 10,000 jobs. And for one person working in a car-making company, there are 10 in the value chain. So that decision of buying a company that nobody wanted to buy and that probably would have closed has created 100,000 jobs. So that's quite good. That how many companies do we have in Europe that don't have a clear future, but they can be a good basis for a Chinese company to buy and grow from there. I know of some companies in Spain that have been acquired, and they have told me that they are very happy. In some cases, they let them continue to manage the company and, grow and do things, do more R&D, do more. So I think that it can only be good.
We've seen, in particular, a lot of Chinese inbound investment into Portugal in the last couple of years, and probably a bit less into Spain. I'd be interested in both of your perspectives on how Spain is perceived as an investment destination by Chinese companies. We'll start with you, Pedro.
Well, the thing is that we have not been making things easy enough. So I think that to go global, you must, if somebody wants to invest here, needs some permits, needs to transfer some money, needs to be able to get a visa for the people that work in the company so that they can be sure that they will be able to come here when needed. And we have not been very good at all of these details, while Portugal has been very, very good at these details. And this is the reason. So I think that Spain is a nice place, is a good place to invest. We have fantastic companies, we have a good economy, we have good managers, we have good technicians, so it could be ideal place, but we have to facilitate the things.
What's your perspective on Spain, China? I guess it's the relations are strong, but what's your perception on the business possibilities?
Yes, I think actually Chinese businessmen and Spanish businessmen work together. We can create a win-win strategy. Like our school's alumni, we have several dozen students. Alumni, they have their business in European countries. And according to our statistics, they create around 10,000 job opportunity for European countries. And for their investment, not necessarily take the market here. Actually, they work together, create a better technology and a business model, then back to China or even go to other countries. So that's kind of a win-win situation. Also, before I come here, I talked with a Spanish Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai. They have around 300 members. They are all quite satisfied with their business presence in China, and they are quite confident. So I think there are a lot of sectors, though now we are in the economic difficulties, but I still think we can locate many business opportunities. We can work together to find a win-win strategy.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the other themes of today, which is absolutely technology, digitization, and the trends in that direction. And we know that there's a strong desire in China to have at least one homegrown, and probably many homegrown Nobel Prize laureates in science, in physics, chemistry, or medicine. And with that in mind, I'd like to understand your views on how you see research and development, and particularly innovation in China. What should we expect in the next couple of years?
Okay, so strong science and technology is a national strategy for China. And though China is quite young if compared with some developed countries, but China make a lot of efforts on science and technology research activities. In China, for the basic research, we have a China Academy of Sciences. and a lot of universities. And we also have quite a number of independent research institutions. Like in Shanghai, we have around 200. And for many years, the Chinese government invested a lot of money for research activities. I think now it's very close to 3% of GDP. But nowadays, a lot of private company, they invest a huge amount of money for the research activities. So now the Chinese government very much encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. So just 1 month ago, we have a national conference, and our chairman Xi Jinping said the country will give support to scientists for their activities. So I think we are moving very fast. And for the Nobel Prize winner, I think it's just a matter of time.
We have to put bets on whether you'll have a Nobel Prize winner or a World Cup football team, which one will come first.
Thank you.
To put it in perspective, I've been part of a lot of debates in Europe about the conditions that have enabled something like Silicon Valley to start where it did and how it did, and there's a lot of energy in Europe around how we create that culture of innovation. Do you think we'll see, or maybe there already is, a Silicon Valley in terms of the entrepreneurship and innovation in China?
Yes, in China there are, I should say, many regions. They are quite ambitious, try to set up a Chinese Silicon Valley. I think from the government aspect, they provide very strong support. Now we work very hard on the policy regulation aspect. We should create a very good environment to let the scientists to play their role. That's very important. And also we encourage international collaboration because science and technology, there is no boundary, national boundaries. By working together among different countries' scientists, we can make good achievements. So I think actually like Shanghai, we have several high-tech parks. I believe those kind of parks will play a very positive role in China's R&D activities.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit. We've talked about Chinese investment outbound. We haven't talked as much about the business opportunities in China and some of the opportunities and challenges around doing business in China. You've personally started a business in China. What would you advise companies here thinking of entering the market, whether that be to sell to the Chinese market or whether that be to create a production or a supply hub?
Well, I believe that a good business model is global. So if you have a good business model, this is going to work in China, in Africa, in wherever. So if you see a shop of Zara in Shanghai, it's very, very, very similar to a shop of Zara here or in the United States. So if you see a Starbucks coffee shop downtown Shanghai, if they do, well, probably most of the people will be Chinese, but everything looks exactly like if you enter in a Starbucks coffee. And like this, when you buy a Mercedes we have a campus in Africa, in Ghana. And well, the leading dealers of Mercedes there are close to our school in Ghana. So I have visited the leadership because I wanted, the dealership because I wanted to learn. So it looks exactly like a dealership of Mercedes in China or in Munich, because Mercedes would not let them sell their cars if they did not follow exactly the same regulations. And they don't change at all the Mercedes car in Africa. And the same thing you can find when, the first company you see when you come from the airport in Accra, in Ghana, is Vodafone. One day I said, okay, I want to know who's running this company. So I tell you confidentially, don't tell anybody, but I just knocked at the door and said, could I see the president? They were so surprised that they said, okay, let me ask, who are you? And then I said who I was. And then the president of Vodafone was a colleague of myself from Harvard. So I said, well, can I write a case of course. So I wrote a case on Vodafone Africa. And you see, well, Vodafone is Vodafone. It's a telecom company. They don't change the business model. And everybody in Africa has a mobile phone. And well, this means that Vodafone is doing e-banking, e-health, So I think that if the model is not working, it's because it's not a good model. But if it is good, it works.
I think there are many companies, there are as many who have spent 25 years feeling as though they're not getting it right in China. Some of them losing money, some of them eventually selling up. There are enough examples of it being difficult, and I'm thinking of B&Q, Kentucky Fried Chicken, 7-Eleven has had to alter its model substantially. Many companies have had 2 or 3 tries at entering the market, and many of them would say that they didn't adequately adapt their business model, whether that be around how to, understanding that there are many Chinese consumers and not just one type. Is there something in that in terms of the challenges that people need to work around?
When you do something, you need commitment. It's very nice to be in a meeting and say, we are in China. Another thing is to say, we are exploiting fully, completely, the opportunity of China. This means commitment. Commitment means people. You have to hire people. You have to train people. You have to motivate people, retain them. You may need investments. If you don't do this, you better don't go. But if you understand, which is the same thing that if you go to United States, you will need to hire people, retain them, motivate them, pay them. You will need to hire some office. If you are in manufacturing, you will need a plant, or you will have to find somebody who is a supplier. But this commitment, there are many companies that don't do this kind of thing. And there are other companies that do it. I remember the president of an important company that invested in China, and he came to our school. I had known the person before, and he said, well, I need to hire MBAs. And I said, okay, no problem. How many do you need? And he said, all. I said, well, then we have a problem. You cannot hire all of them. I said, well, we are a bit late. We have to run. It's a very important company in Latin America, in Europe, in United States. He said, well, we forgot. We are late. We need to run. So he hired 7 or 8. And the following year, he came again to hire more. and brought the 8 that he had hired and put them in this scenario. We had a meeting in the auditorium explaining the company with behind the people that he had hired the year before, so that people could see that he was retaining, motivating classmates of 1 year ahead of them. So I think that when you see this commit, of course the company is going fast and doing well, but there is a commitment. So I ask, there is General Motors has a plant very near our school in Shanghai. We had an event in the automotive sector, and we had the head of that General Motors plant. And well, General Motors has now a president who is a lady, probably the first time that a lady becomes president of an automotive company, Miss Mary Barra. And I asked the guy of General Motors, how is Mary Barra doing? And he said, oh, she's coming every month here, because he believes that we have to do a lot in China. So, okay, this is a commitment. So there are people who, I ask sometimes, people who are in China, how often do you go there? No, I go twice a year. Okay.
No. With 2 minutes left to go and the clock about to start flashing at me, Mingjun, a question for you in closing, really. When you work with people from overseas who are interested in doing business in China or doing business with Chinese companies, what advice would you give us? Are there things that you wish we understood better when setting out?
Okay, I think the first should be a well-identified strategy. No matter you have the new technology or new business models, you have something others they don't have. Just like Pedro mentioned, why Zara is so successful, because China, a lot of youth, they would like to have a fashion. So Zara, every 3 months, they have a totally new versions of the clothing. So I think that's very important. And the second is, if it's working together, find the right partner. It's very important. And they should committed to work together. And also the third is, from the very beginning, starting point, they should create a very good, solid implementation mechanism. Yeah, that's my suggestion.
Super. So my impression from speaking to both of you, and indeed from my own visits to the region, is that China in particular and Asia in general is an enormously dynamic region. Things are changing rapidly, and that change is creating opportunities and challenges for all of us, frankly, whether we like it or not. I think there's going to be no avoiding the influence of China, the continued influence of China on the world economy. And as I said, I think that creates significant opportunities for all of us as business people, yes, in Spain, but in an increasingly global economy. And when we marry that with the technology trends, the digitization, and the sheer level of investment that's going into R&D and technical development in China, then I think we have many, many reasons to be really excited, and many reasons to be very, very motivated as well. So with that, I'd like to thank you, the audience, for your attention, and thank Mingjun and Pedro for their excellent contributions this afternoon. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.